Meanwhile, another big story from the White House. Energy Secretary Rick Perry resigning. He now joins me in his first television interview back home in Texas. You were at the rally last night, sir, and good morning, and thank you for your time today. I've got a lot to get through. Let's see how much we cover.
Good morning.
You bet. 2.5 years on the job. Your departure had been rumored for weeks rather. What does your departure have to do with Ukraine, Mr. Secretary?
Yeah, well, it has absolutely nothing to do with Ukraine. It has everything to do with, for the last 8 or 9 months, I've been looking back to Texas on a pretty regular basis, to Round Top, Texas, my wife, my dogs, and kind of going on to the next adventure in life. And I had a number of things that I really wanted to get done before I departed and came back to Texas. Working on the LNG projects to where we're bringing American gas into Europe was a big part of that. Making sure that we had the MOUs done with Poland, with Ukraine, all of that process going on in the rest of the European Union so that they weren't being held hostage by that Russian gas. We also had back at home some issues with civil nuclear and being able to make nuclear cool again, if you will. And so we'd really been working on that. Tomorrow I leave for Brussels. Hitting the small modular reactor conference, the first of its kind ever done. And the last, and frankly for me on a personal note, just one of the most important things I worked on was standing up an office from whole cloth on artificial intelligence, and that artificial intelligence technology office is now set up and ready to go.
Well, to you, from your military days, time as a governor, time in the White House, you got that okay? Hang on a second. We'll get this straightened out here in a moment. Here it is, live television. I'll say thank you for your service, sir. And if you've got me back here, I want to bring you back to Mick Mulvaney.
I'm back with you, Bill. We're back on with audio now.
Did his comments make things better or worse yesterday?
I think he was straight up with what he said. I think there are people trying to connect dots when the facts would, by basically saying that there was no quid pro quo in the sense of what those folks out there would like for it to be, that we're going to give you this money unless you go investigate Joe Biden and his son. I never heard that said anywhere, anytime, in any conversation, Bill. And I think the truth of the matter is we've been working to get Ukraine back in the sphere of influence of the United States and the Western states with American gas for 2+ years. When Poroshenko was over there, we met with him. We talked to him about, you got to get rid of the corruption in this country. Everyone knows that the oligarchs and the people in that country were corrupt, or too many of them were, let me put it that way. And Zelensky ran on this. He said, you elect me and I will stop this corruption in the country. We had those conversations with him.
Okay, let me try and nail down a few points here. So you're saying the Biden's name did not come up in any of your discussions with Ukrainian officials, correct? That's
never
what you said?
Heard. Never
did it come
heard
up
the
with
Biden's
your discussions
name
at
one
the White
time.
House?
No, not with anyone. I'm telling you, Bill, the Biden's name. Did corruption come up? We heard corruption in almost every conversation that we had talking about Ukraine and whether or not President Zelensky was going to come over here, because President Trump wasn't going to send American money to a country that had a history of being corrupt. And he was hammering that, and we hammered that. I pushed on him a lot to make that phone call because I became convinced that Zelensky, the people around him, were legitimately trying to get rid of the corruption and get off the Russian gas.
The president said you pushed him to make the phone call with Zelensky. Do you agree with that characterization?
Absolutely. I called multiple times and said, whether it was to John Bolton, to whether it was Mick Mulvaney, when I saw the president, I said, Mr. President, I think it's time to make this phone call. I think bringing in this president and showing him that we're going to be good, reliable, they have to do some things. They have to show us they're going to respect the rule of law, that they're going to be transparent, they're going to unbundle their midstream gas company. All of those things were part of him coming in. And I think that's completely and absolutely legitimate. That's what we're supposed to be doing, bringing the private sector in, American companies, American gas, and showing Europe that you can count on us and you're not going to be held hostage by Russian gas.
You said a week ago, Wall Street Journal, you were told to consult with Rudy Giuliani on matters with Ukraine. Were you okay with that?
You know, I've known Rudy since 2008. I endorsed him for president in 2008.
It didn't strike you as odd or anything taken away from the State Department when you were told to do that?
You know, here, you know, as the governor of Texas, I use people outside of government all the time to give me information, flow me in from experts. You know, I respect the State Department, but I happen to know people in the energy industry that are smarter than the State Department folks. I didn't see a problem with that at all.
Okay, you have a subpoena deadline as of today for documents as they relate to any involvement you had with Ukraine. Will you meet that deadline as of today?
Yeah, our general counsel's taking a look at that right now, and when they send their answer in at the end of the day, whatever their decision will be, I'll follow that.
I'm not sure if that was a yes or a no. Do you have one now?
Well, I don't know if that's a yes or a no yet because I haven't seen what the general counsel's advice to me is going to be.
Okay, Democrats are already asking you to testify. Will you do that?
Again, I'm going to rely upon our general counsel to give me advice. You got to remember, I've done this before when I was the governor of the state of Texas. I had an absolute and total trumped-up deal that worked out against me, and I'm going to do what the council tells me to do.
Okay, when you hear all this talk about immigration, whether it be coming across the border in Texas and the president's plea last night about the wall, when you hear the discussion on Capitol Hill about impeachment, what do you think people are missing in the story? Because your answers today have been emphatic, that there was nothing behind the scenes that was untoward. So when you see this being carried out by House Democrats, how are we to understand where this is going? Well,
I'm a big believer that we need to be doing trade and we need to be focused on it, and the USMCA, that needs to be passed. I mean, whether you're a Canadian citizen, a Mexican citizen, or a U.S. citizen. And that's being pushed to the side by this almost, you know, crazed idea that somehow or another this president's done something wrong and we're going to impeach him. What he's done wrong in a lot of people's eyes is he won an election. And for them to get us so far off track in what I consider to be a total and absolute improper use. I mean, if they're going to do this, they need to at least follow the historic rules, and they're not. I mean, listen, I go back to, I got indicted as a sitting governor, and when it was all said and done, it was not only thrown out, my record was expunged. I had to spend a couple of $1 million defending it, but the point is, why are we letting our political process be so corrupted by the politics of trying to tear this country apart, when the fact is we got a lot of great things that we could be doing, and we are, but we're being hamstrung because of this, you know, obvious, from my perspective, just politically generated issue.
Two last questions. Will they find any evidence of a crime based on your experience and your dealings with the West Wing of the White House and Ukraine, sir?
No.
How's your relationship with the president today?
It's awesome. He never ceases to amaze me. I mean, I'm sitting there yesterday on Air Force One watching multiple things happen. His chief of staff on television, and right as that ends, the president's dealing with a great story that, unfortunately, I think got pushed off to the side because of all this other stuff, and that is finding the way to do a ceasefire in a part of the world where multiple administrations haven't been able to address that. Very unconventional way of doing diplomacy. I get that, but I think we're making some great progress there, headed in the right direction. And then to go do a major event where in my home state of Texas, 1,000 jobs are going to get created at a Louis Vuitton manufacturer. You didn't ever think you'd hear Texas, Louis Vuitton in the same
you're probably
sentence,
right
most
about
likely.
that. 30,000 outside.
And then he goes up.
Yeah, Democrats think Texas is in play. We'll see whether or not that's the case. I want to thank you for your time today and thank you for your service. And we'll see where that goes.
Welcome, Bill.
Back on
You're
Capitol Hill. Secretary Perry,
yes, sir.
Thank you for your time.